Okay, this is going to be Unit 2, Notes number 2, which is going to be our product rule. So we're still going to go over our exponents, but now we're actually going to cover about 5 different rules with our exponents. So I want you to kind of think of, if we have x squared and x3, we're going to kind of expand this one out. So x squared would be x times x, and then x to the third would be x times x times x. So whenever I have that, I want you to think, how many x's do I have altogether? And whenever you look at that, you should see, oh, I have 2 x's in the first and 3 x's in the second. So I have 5 x's altogether. So whenever we're thinking about that, our result is we get 5 x's. So let's do the next one. We have x times x times x times x. That's our first one. Second one is we have x. And then our last one is we have x times x. So altogether I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 x's. So my result would be 7. So I want you to kind of see what is happening to my exponents. I hope you see that, oh, we're adding them. So we have 4 plus 1 plus 2. Okay, let's go to our last one. We have negative 2 to the third, so this is going to be negative 2, negative 2, negative 2. Then we have negative 2 to the first, so we just have 1, negative 2. So altogether I have 4. So again, this had a 1, and so I added my 2 exponents to get 4. Now, negative 2 to the fourth, you're going to type that in exactly in your calculator, negative 2 in parentheses to the fourth power, and you're going to get an answer of 16. So our product rule is just saying whenever we multiply the same base. So if you saw in these, whenever we had our x's, we had x as the same base. Negative 2 was our base. Whenever we have the same base, we add the exponents. Okay, so let's go down to the bottom, and we're going to talk about how this is going to be applied. So we're going to still have our same rules intact. But with our exponents, that's the only thing that's going to be a little bit different. So anytime we have coefficients, we're going to multiply those first. So we have negative 2, there's a 1, and then a 3. Multiply those together, it's going to give you negative 6. And then I have x, x, and x. Those all have our bases. So I have 5 x's, 1 x. So don't forget that that x still has a 1 on it. We can't just disregard it. And then 6. We're going to add all those together, and we're going to get x to the 12th. Because if you would just not realize that this x had a 1 and just forgot about it, it wouldn't be a part of our answer, which means we're not really multiplying them all together. And that is all we are doing. Okay, next one. We just have 2 bases. We have a to the fourth and a to the negative second. So I'm going to do, I have 4 and negative 2. So since it's a negative, I mean, you can still do 4 plus negative 2, but you're basically going to be subtracting, so you're going to get a to the second power. So our base stays the same, and our exponents change. Okay, the next one. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky. We have b to the 1/5 times b to the 1/2. So we have to add 1/5 and 1/2. So if you remember, whenever you're adding fractions, you have to have the same base, the same denominator. So what's a common denominator between 5 and 2? That would be 10. So I'm going to multiply this one by 2. I'm going to multiply this one by 5. So we're going to get 2 over 10 plus 5 over 10. So I'm going to get 7 over 10 as my exponent. Now, if you're like, Mrs. Gilbert, I don't know how to do this. If you write this out for me, and you can type into your calculator 1 divided by 5, close your parentheses, plus 1 divided by 2 in parentheses. You're going to get a decimal. And if you hit math, enter, like we've reviewed, you're going to get 7/10. So if you need to utilize your calculator, please do. The next one, we have c to the 5th, d to the 4th times c to the 3rd, d to the 1st. So you can only add your exponents of the same basis. So we're going to look at c first. So I'm going to write c down here. I'm going to add the 5 and the 3, and that's going to give me 8. Then I'm going to look at the d. With my d, I have 4, and then don't forget that there's a 1 on here. If you have to write it. And so that's going to be 5. And that is my answer. Okay, now I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I'm going to see which ones are equivalent to this one. So I'm going to first solve this one. So we have negative 3 z to the 8th times 4 z to the negative 3rd. So I'm going to multiply my coefficients. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. You have z and z, so I'm going to add my exponents. 8 and negative 3 is going to give you 5. So that is my ultimate answer. So let's go down to the bottom. Is that one at least one of my answers? Oh, look, it's this one right here. So that's one of my possibilities. Then I'm going to go look, okay, which ones also are the same? Well, I know this one isn't the same because that's just not even like it at all. This one I need to multiply my coefficients. So negative 12 and 1, you get negative 12. You add your exponents, you get z to the 5th. Oh, that's the same too. So some of these you'll have to kind of solve and figure out, are they the same? Okay, this one will have to do the same thing. So negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. I have z, so I'm going to add 10 and negative 5, and that's going to give me 5. That one's also the same. So we're going to shade that one in. Then our last one, negative 12 z to the 11th, that one's not right. We know that already. So we got to go back to this first one. So we know our coefficient is negative 12. And then with our fractions, we have to add them. Well, they have the same denominator, so I can just add the top. 7 plus 3 is 10. 2 is going to stay on the bottom. Well, 2 divided by 10 is 5, or 10 divided by 2 is 5. So it'll be z to the 5th, so this is also the same option. So you're not going to be able to just guess on these. You're going to have to go through and figure out which ones are similar and which ones aren't. Okay, so simplify each of the following. We're just going to go down to the bottom, and we are going to simplify each one of these. So we have a to the 5th, a to the negative 1, so add our exponents. So we're going to get a to the 4th. You have c to the 7th times d times c to the 2nd d. So you look at your c's, you're going to add 7 and 2. Going to get 9. And then for your d's, you're going to add 1 and 9. So don't forget that 1's on there. You're going to get d to the 10th. Okay, this one has my lovely fraction. So I'm going to do 1/4 plus 1/3. I have to find a common denominator. So the common denominator between 3 and 4 is 12. So I'm going to multiply 4 by 3 to get to 12. And what I do at the top, I got to do the bottom. And I'm going to multiply 3 by 4 to get that. So I'm going to have 3 over 12 plus 4 over 12. This is going to give me 7 over 12. So that is going to be my exponent for B. Again, if you need to use your calculator, you can use your calculator. If you need to use Desmos, use Desmos. Okay, last one. So we have to multiply our coefficients. So negative 5 times 1 times 4. It's going to give me negative 20. Then I have x to the 4th, x to the 1st. So don't forget about that 1. And then 5. So you're going to get x to the 10th because you have to add them together. Okay, so anytime we're multiplying like bases, we add our exponents. That's going to be important because in the next set of notes, we are going to learn about what we do with a power to a power. Okay, so now that we know whenever we're multiplying like bases, we add our exponents. Let's go to the next page, which is kind of introduce something new. So whenever we multiplying polynomials, so polynomials we're going to kind of talk about more in the second part of this unit, but our product rule goes hand in hand with this. So multiplying polynomials, we use the product property, which is what we talked about today, or the product rule, when we multiply a monomial with a polynomial. So a monomial is when you have one term. A polynomial is when you have 4 or more terms. So on this first one, we do x times x3. We're multiplying like basis, so we add our exponents. So we have a 1 on this, we're going to get x to the 4th. Then we do x times 2. This would be 2x, because I just do 2 times x. And that is my answer. Next one, I have 2x squared, and then I have 3x minus 5. So I'm going to do 2x squared times 3. So I do 2 times 3, which is 6. And then I have x, and then I add my exponent. So I add 2 and I add 1, so I get 3. And then 2x times negative 5 is going to give me negative 10x. Oh, negative 10x squared, sorry. That is my answer. Last one, I do negative 3x times 2x squared. So negative 3 times 2, negative 6. I have my x, and I have to add my exponent. So 1 plus 2 is going to give me 3. Bring your plus. Negative 3x times 4x. So negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. So I actually want this to be an addition or subtraction sign. So that's going to be negative. And then x, I have 1 plus and a 1 on this one. So I'm going to have x to the 2nd. And that is my answer. So this kind of is what we're going to be going into next. So keep that in mind. Okay, we have to find the area of the triangle. So just to review, to find area, we do our length times our width. So on both of these, we're given our width and we're given our length. So we're just going to multiply. So you're basically going to set them up like you had above. So we're going to have 2x times 3x to the 5th plus 2. So I'm going to do 2x times 3x to the 5th. So 2 times 3 is 6. Then you have your x. You have x to the 1st and x to the 5th. So you add them to get 6. And then 2 times 2 is going to give me a positive 4. And then you have your x that you just bring. So that would be my area. Okay, next one, I have x to the 3rd and 2x to the 3rd. So I'm going to have x to the 3rd times 2x to the 3rd minus 1. So you're going to do x to the 3rd times 2x to the 3rd. So you have 2 times the 1 in front of the x to get 2. Then you add the 3 and the 3 on your x to get 6. And then x to the 3rd times negative 1 is just going to be negative x to the 3rd. And that is my answer. Okay, so that's the end of our notes today. Please let me know if you have any questions over anything.